I'm just popping in to let you know that we had a little bit of technical difficulties at the end of this video. I get almost to the very end sketching with the black ink, but then my camera decided not to film anymore. So I did want to mention that there is a section at the end that gets cut off, but I still think that it's a great tutorial with lots of valuable information, and I hope you still decide to do it. In our tutorial today, we are going to be painting, we're going to be using ink and watercolor paint, and we're going to be doing it a little bit different than I typically paint in a layered pattern. We're going to be painting an autumn town. This is part of the 31 Days of Autumn challenge. If you aren't part of that, it doesn't matter, but if you are, this is one of the videos for that challenge. So what we're going to do is we want to first start off by just sketching, and usually I do just go straight into my pen and sketch with the pen, but I know some of us might not feel comfortable doing that. So in my mind, I have this idea of an autumn village, but if you're having a hard time coming up with ideas, get on the internet, look up pictures, photos. Pinterest is a great resource. We are going to start off by just making our horizon line, just like about 3/4 of the way up. Or 2/4, sorry, no, 2/3. I guess 3/4. Okay. And I don't know if you guys are familiar, but we're gonna talk about vantage point really quick. Vantage point is something that's really important for artists, especially when you're painting landscapes. It basically, in the most simplest terms, if I had a road right here that went like this, everything here would be large and tall, and then it would slowly get smaller over here. So what this does is, if you took a picture, you would see that things get smaller the further away they get, and what's right in front of you is larger. This just helps to draw the eye in. Now, we're not going to be doing some huge city scene like this, but I did want to mention it because it is an important thing to know as an artist. But for us, we are going to have just this little kind of windy road coming in. So don't pay attention to that. But the windy road is going to be quite small up here and then get thicker as we get closer. Okay, so we have our little road, and then we could add some like trees up here. I'm just going to make them basically like these little rounded, maybe cone shaped, because we all know that fall is all about the leaves changing colors, even though I'm in California and it doesn't happen for a long time. And I want to have something that's a little more like a focus point out here. And I think I'm going to make a little church. I'm going to start with just a triangle. Again, I'm just sketching. This is a different style that I'm going for today. It's not going to be a super detailed look. I am going to move this road just a little bit though. Okay, so then coming down and making a square, and then having the side of the church come out here. And then that steeple that is very indicative of small towns. Just have it come up. And then that tall kind of, I don't know what that is, spike. And I want to put a couple windows in. Maybe we have like an arch here. And this is, okay, so this line would be a little bit longer, and then this would go up a little bit. If it's just flat, that's not telling us that this is kind of facing down. So you want to make this at an angle, and the same thing here, this would be at an angle as well. Okay, so that's our little church, our kind of focal point. And then I want to do just a couple other little houses, really simple, maybe with a little chimney. Again, if you guys, I know I'm kind of moving fast with sketching, but pull up a photo for reference for yourself if you want to, or you can just copy what I'm doing. So we have this little road, and then maybe make a couple other little houses over here. Maybe this one is going to be kind of like a barn. So it has this. We can put in more details when we do the pen, and maybe like a little fence. And I want to put some rolling hills back here. And then just kind of gently outlining, this will be a bunch of trees. They're going to be those bright fall colors. And then another rolling hill back here. And we'll do another little house. Somebody had requested that I do more of those little videos on ink and then making just like light watercolor on it. So this is actually that. Okay. And we can put like little bushes and stuff. So this is our really simple autumn town. Something else you might want to do, maybe you want like a pumpkin patch out here. I would say that those probably would be a little big. Those would be really giant pumpkins. If we want the pumpkins to be more visible, maybe we make them closer to us. These are, again, really big pumpkins. You could even do like one right here. That's really big because this is the closest to us. Okay, now we have our really basic sketch and we're just gonna start painting. Or there's one of two ways you can do this. Because I know not all of you probably have archival pens, we are gonna paint first and then draw over it. But if you do have an archival pen, I like to use the Pigeon Letters, the monoline pen, but I think Pigma or Sakura makes them as well. They're waterproof, which means that you can sketch everything out and then paint over it, which is really, I love working like that because it just makes it a little bit easier, because when you just paint first, it's hard to see it come alive and you might want to keep on adding more and more paint. But when you do this first and the pen and then you just add color, for some reason to me, it comes together a lot more easily. But we're gonna start with the paint because I know you might not have an archival pen. Okay, so we're gonna start painting this. These are a little bit dark, these lines. It's not a huge deal because we're coming in with the black, but I want to get rid of them a little bit. I would like to do a beautiful kind of sunrise, sunset in the background. So I'm going to mix up an orangey color because I want it to be orange and like pinky. I always work with 2 water cups because I like to make sure my colors are nice and vibrant. So mix up an orangey yellow color and then mix up a pink. We don't have a ton of space where the sky is. We don't have to really do too much here, but if you have a flat brush, grab it with just water and paint over the top. I am working on a watercolor block. If you don't have a watercolor block, make sure your paper is taped down because you need to be able to make sure that it doesn't buckle on you. I really recommend watercolor blocks. I didn't use them for the longest time. And once I started getting a little better at watercolor, I decided to get one, and it's amazing, you guys. It's just so amazing. Your paper is down. You're working on a block. There's all these layers underneath that kind of helps soak up the water. It's amazing. Okay, now that this is all wet, I'm just gonna grab that pink color and I'm going to just lightly bring it in. And because the paper is wet, it's going to blend very easily and very pretty. Make sure you stay away from your little steeple there. But it doesn't have to be exact because we're doing more of a sketchy version today. Then I'm grabbing that yellow, orange, and just tapping it in because it's gonna bleed up. because your watercolor paint is gonna go wherever the water is. And if you want to help it a little bit more, you can just kind of lightly blend. And I think I want just a little more pink up here. Watercolor always dries lighter. Just gonna blend that in. Okay, lovely. That's our sky. And now we want to put in our road. I'm gonna make this a dirt road. I'm grabbing brown. We're just filling in colors here. We are not worried about having a ton of detail. We're not worried about layering. This is all about just kind of paint by the number in a way. So this is our dirt road. Just filling that in. And I want to paint these hills, and the hills are going to be, because it's autumn, we're going to make the grass kind of starting to turn brown a little bit, but not too brown. If you are experiencing your watercolor maybe not moving very well, you probably need more water on your brush. Oops. Just kind of filling in. I'm actually okay if this touches the sky and bleeds a little bit, because we're doing a different style today. But I don't want to touch this yet because that will bleed a lot. It's okay if it bleeds a little, but we're gonna wait just a second so it doesn't have like a major bleed up into our sky. We're working in a different style, but we are not throwing all the rules out. Okay. And then, you know what? I might bring down this color just a little bit because we're gonna need to fill the space here. I didn't think I was gonna paint this whole paper, but now it looks like I am. And paint around these little trees because we wanna make sure that it's not too blended in. I have sap green, I believe, and yellow ochre that I'm working with. The yellow ochre is what's giving it that kind of brown green color. Feel free to drop in while it's wet a little bit different colors if you want to. Paint around your little trees right here. I'm working on an Arches watercolor block. They are more expensive. I would say, I think they're the most expensive, but they're amazing. I love it. The other day I was exploring, make sure you paint around your pumpkins because you're not going to be able to make them super orange if you paint green over them. The other day I decided, I'm going to try a new watercolor paper for client work. It was a big mistake. It looked awful. So now I just stick with Arches. I do like, I think it's called Aquarella. I always get the name wrong, but theirs is a little bit less expensive. It's 100% cotton. It is good paper. I don't like doing my client work for things that aren't going to be digitized. For example, custom pet paintings or house paintings or venue paintings where they get to keep it, because it just, I don't know what it is. It just doesn't work as well. Okay, we have that down. And this is still wet, but it's not soaking wet, and we can go in and make our trees. Remember, it's autumn, so some of them are gonna be really orange and yellow, and I'm just tapping in that color. And it's gonna bleed a little bit, and that's okay. If you were to look at a scene where the trees way in the background are orange and yellow, you're not going to see a ton of details in them. So don't worry about having a lot of details. However, make sure you still add in some green because they're gonna need green. And I'm working with the size 8 brush. I'm on a 7" by 10" paper. You can use a brush that makes sense for you. If you're working smaller, a 4 might make sense for you, or if you're working larger, a 12 might make sense for you. Because this is wet, you can just pop in some dark color every now and then. It's just gonna bleed really nicely. And then when we get in here with that black ink, we can easily just make some details that way. So again, I'm switching back and forth between some reds and oranges. That's really red, maybe a little too red. I have never been somewhere, I mean, I guess I visited June Lake and it can feel like fall more up in the Sierras, but for the most part down here, it's October and it still feels like summer. I'm in San Diego, so it's just such a different world compared to where my mom grew up. She had all 4 seasons on the East Coast, and I really want to experience that sometime in my life. I know I will, but just continue this with the pops of yellow and red on the other side here. Make sure you get behind the church. I think the church, I'm gonna leave it white, maybe just with a little color. Maybe we'll color out the windows. If you guys are experiencing super heavy bleeding here, where it's bleeding all the way up into the pink, then maybe wait a second. You don't want it to be too much. But it's okay if it's a little, because the trees would not be a perfect shape. And I can see that my pencil lines actually were a little too dark. So now I have to follow those when I go in with the pen, because I don't want those to be showing. I'm just dabbing, 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 dabbing. I like this style because it's quick. Sometimes, as you guys know, if you've taken my classes or my tutorials on here before, my layered painting can take quite a bit of time. So, okay, we're gonna let that dry. We have our beautiful autumn colors. And let's paint the other side over here with that same kind of brownish green. Definitely need more yellow ochre. And we're just painting around our little houses. I am gonna add a little more green because it's looking like really dead over here, but not really that way on the other side. I also find this style really relaxing because you don't have to think too hard about your next move. You know you're gonna be putting black ink on here and you're gonna be able to add the details you want. You're just really focusing on getting a base layer down. Okay. Okay, so we have that side. Now this side's dry. We can come in and add some color to those trees. Again, we probably want to make them kind of yellowy, orange, but definitely have some green in there too, because they're changing colors. Sometimes your colors can get a little muddy. That usually means that you're mixing opposing colors. That's why I like to do 2 water cups, one for cool tones and one for warm tones. That way your colors stay nice and vibrant. But like over here, I grabbed that green, and that is probably why my colors started getting a little muddy. And maybe just a little bit darker. This tree is closer. It would have more details, but we're gonna add those details when it comes to the pen. It did bleed quite a bit out here. If you want to pick it up, rinse off your brush, dry off your brush, and then just lift. This guy is going to be a little more green. I'm actually going to leave him green. Christmas trees they're not supposed to change colors like the other trees. I just donated, so we had a living Christmas tree for the last couple of years. It was a noble fir, technically, not a noble fir, I'm sorry, a Norfolk pine. Technically they're palm trees, and it has been in our little back patio. I switched the pots out and everything, and it was time for it to be able to be planted in the ground, and they don't let us do it where I live, the HOA. So I just donated it to a tot lot, like little kids playground, and they planted it and they sent me a picture, and it just made me so happy because now it's gonna grow so big. Okay, if you want to add more details while it's wet, feel free to. You can come over here and do that. It's gonna bleed. Now, something that you'll understand the more you paint is there's a time limit to how long. When this starts to dry, you have to be really careful because you can start to pull up the color that's underneath. And unfortunately, I can't tell you how much time that is. You have to just experience it for yourself. It's also going to be different if you live somewhere that's more humid or less humid. If you live in the desert, it's going to dry a lot faster. But that is something that you really need to pay attention to. Okay. And last but not least, these little pumpkins. Let's grab some orange and just paint. That's a big pumpkin. Again, guys, this is messy, right? Like, look at how I'm overlapping. This is never how I would paint if I was doing layered painting, but this is a different style and it's okay. I'm gonna put something right there, maybe some little like grass or something, just using the tip of my brush. Just something to give more detail. Okay, we wanna leave the church white, and I wanna paint those little windows a light blue color. I'm grabbing a smaller brush and just a little bit of light blue. And I'm just going to, another thing you could do is you can make them yellow to make them look lit up. I am not going to do that, but that would be really cute if you wanted to. That's like my go-to thing when I'm painting Christmas things, is I always make the windows light up. And then maybe the one over here, their windows are a little bit darker because they haven't woken up yet or they're gone for the day. And this one we're gonna paint the actual house, but for now we're just gonna go like that. And, oh, I forgot there was a little bush right there. I'm gonna grab green, just tap in some color. There we go. And maybe make just a little horizon line out here. Just make it a little darker. It's still really wet, so it's just bleeding. I think we might have to let this dry before we go any further, because if I paint anything here or here, it's gonna bleed. So let's let it dry really quick, and we'll come back and we can add in those details, and then we can start using our pen. Okay, we're nice and dry. Now we're gonna add in some additional color to the houses. I want this one to be a brown barn. Just mixing up a little brown. And I'm just painting color all over it. And if you want, you can drop in some darker shades. Maybe you wanted the roof to be a little darker. Do that. The house right next to it, I'm gonna make red. Beignet, my dog, always decides to play with her most annoying toy when I'm filming. I'm leaving a little bit of white around the windows because I want it to look as if they have white around them. And the roof, I'm kind of leaving a little white. This house up here, let's see. I think I'm gonna make it brown again. Maybe leave the roof white. Like it's made out of wood. I mean, the chimney would not probably be made out of wood, but that's okay. And our church, we're leaving it white. However, I do want to make the door, maybe the door is made out of wood. And the roof, actually, I'm just gonna leave it totally white. If you want to add more detail, you could add, you know, a little bit darker shade of orange to these pumpkins down here. You could add more details if you want to. I'm gonna keep it pretty simple today. And we are going to start sketching in some of these details. I have a size 3 pen. Make sure everything is dry before you come in with this. This is a waterproof pen, but that doesn't mean that you want to draw on wet paper because it'll tear. And I'm gonna start with the church because it's kind of our focal point. And I'm using kind of like a sketching motion. I'm not just drawing a straight line. You could, but I like to kind of do sketching. So I'm just kind of pulling and dragging it. And then the little window. You might need a thicker pen. If you feel like you do, feel free. Use whatever size you have. I am actually gonna switch to a 5 because this one is a little light. So I have a 5. And again, I'm just kind of sketching that. Not really harsh lines. I am going to follow the line of this and just make little lines in the roof. I think this pen might be on the fritz. I've had it for a long time. And I'm just outlining everything. And this is my chance to add details. So if I wanted to make this church be that shiplap where there's like planks of wood, I could do that. I'm gonna make this door wood, so I'm putting little tiny lines in it. I did just paint it, so I can tell that it's kind of bleeding a little bit because I just painted it. Then another thing you can do is where there would be shadows, maybe there's a little overhang here, just add in another line so it's a little bit darker. And if you want, you could put a little cross on top of the church. And then this is what we're gonna do. We're just going to outline everything that we drew. So the trees, like I said, there's not gonna be a ton of details. So I'm just making these little kind of curves, like these little C curves. And then if, you know, there's points where you want it to look more shadowed, just add a little more black in there. It's really just easy going. It's not complicated, don't overthink it. It's as complicated or as simple as you want it to be. This is a really fun practice I have on my Skillshare channel, or on my Skillshare, I do classes on there as well. I have one on creating these little cottage core style homes, and it's really fun, and I show you my methods and kind of how I get inspiration and all that. So if you're interested in this style, definitely check out that video on Skillshare. There will be a link at the end of this tutorial that you can follow. So I'm just making these little trees. Then our hill, And again, we want to reinforce that horizon line because that is going to draw our eye in. Then we have this little house, and I'm going to put just almost like little bricks. And for this, I'm going to make it the roof lines coming down like this and then crossing over. I think I'm gonna make this like wood slats. So just ever so lightly, not making them all connect, just making sure that I would follow where the lines would go. Hey guys, so I had some technical difficulties. My camera decided to just stop filming because my storage was full, even though it was not. But anyways, I wanted to still keep this tutorial because we got so far in it, and I think that you can kind of know where to go from here, but this is the finished piece. Some things that I talked about was when you are working on the trees, look at a tree and squint your eyes so you can see the little variations where the shadows are at. Again, this is a really loose, fun style. It's not meant to be super realistic looking, and we're not working on perfectionism. But I wanted to just, keep this tutorial, even though I didn't get to show you, we were almost at the end, but I didn't get to draw in all the little details, but you can see them all here. Thanks again for watching this tutorial. I hope you have all the information you need to create pieces like this. And if you want to follow me, I'm on Instagram at @lavenderandc. Also, please tag me in your work. I love to see what you create. And then I also mentioned that I have a Skillshare class on how to do these kind of cottage core fun little drawings, and I linked that in the description. So thanks for your patience. I'm sorry that the end of this video got cut off, but I think that it's still a great tutorial and I hope you enjoyed it.